Good evening, everybody, and welcome to yet another stream. Thank you all for joining me tonight. Looking like it's going to be a real fun one. But also, I want to make sure we take the time to be able to teach a little bit tonight. As it is the weekend walkthrough, I want to make sure I can help people learn, understand better the different compositions, general ways to play the game, and hopefully, anything else that they're looking for. With that, I think we're good to just jump right in. Hopefully everybody's had a good weekend. Hopefully there hasn't been too many crazy things going on for you. Sorry for the slight echo there, I'm not sure exactly what happened. But hopefully it should be fixed now. Please let me know if it isn't. So it's taking a surprisingly long time for us to jump into game tonight. I know in previous nights it's been very live fire, ready to rock and roll. But that'll give us a little bit of time to think about what we want to do with tonight's games. The biggest change from Set 4 to Set 5 is the loss of the Chosen mechanic. With the Chosen mechanic, you had to really learn how to play flexibly, making sure that you didn't set yourself up too closely on a certain strategy or two, otherwise you could find yourself falling short and potentially falling behind in the game, meaning that you couldn't execute your game plan. Now that Chosen mechanic's gone, as well as adding in things like the armory, it really does allow you to start doing more what's called one-tricking, where you play only a certain composition, maybe a second one as a fallback if the one that you aim to play is taken. But realistically speaking, it's possible to start one-tricking more in this new meta, especially considering the most recent patch brought updates, power adjustments to Katarina. Assassins 4 and 6 are looking very powerful. Now that they've nerfed the Coven comp as well as Renewers, it really did open up a few other things, such as Jackson Skirmishers. It's a very forcible comp, as well as a Draven carry with Forgotten. As we look to get into game here, one of the first things I want to grab is a Crit Glove, as that will build into pretty much every composition that I can think of. So I've been finding personally one of my most enjoyable builds, and one of the builds I have the most success with, is Forgotten Katarina. So either going 4 or 6 assassins, getting some Forgotten, or potentially Coven. The other build that I've really been enjoying, when I hit, of course, is Hellions. Now I know they're not the strongest build, but they very well complement my playstyle, as I'm the type of person who is comfortable dropping some health, using it as a resource, and aiming to try and play around what we get. Now I took a gamble there buying the Poppy instead of the Ziggs, hoping to find another Hellion here for a 3 Hellion start. Realistically, I should have just taken the Ziggs. But for now, we can start to save our money, hope that we're able to get some more gold here. The only thing on my mind is if I want to buy the Callista, knowing that she is a very strong early game unit. And she's a potential item holder for pretty much everybody, AP and AD alike. The fact that we get a fast 2-star Varus for free, and the fact that we have redeemed in the shop, makes me feel very confident that what I can do here is I can look for some sort of a redeemed opener, potentially selling my bench to level and put in Vayne. In fact, I think I will do just that, as I believe the 2 Ranger buff will be quite powerful. I'm just not sure how I want to approach my items this game. Knowing that I would want to stay redeemed, especially with the ability power start, I think the best thing I could do is just make the items on Vayne, knowing that I would want the Jeweled Gauntlet for Vel'koz anyway. And in the event I end up finding more Varus, I'll play Varus carry. As far as what I would put in at level 5 here, in the immediate, I'd probably look to just add another knight, just get a little bit more frontline here. I'm not sure what use I could have for the armor potentially, knowing that we're just mainly looking for Vel'koz items. So I will take the Shadow Glove here in hopes that I can potentially use it for a Hand of Justice or something. So here I'm just going to buy the Thresh and the Brand, as I'm not going to be able to break 10 gold this round, and that gives me a Knight to put in, as well as preparing myself for getting some redeemed Spellweaver going, in the event I do want to do Spellweaver as the main composition core, since Vel'koz will be the carry there. Because the other option is I just go 6 redeemed and make sure that even though Vel'koz is carrying, my other units can still put out some good damage reliably. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to buy Nautilus, knowing that as Rel is a redeemed and Ironclad, she's going to be the premier unit to put in whenever I find her. And at level 5, having Nautilus along with Leona will give us a very powerful 2-knight frontline to let Varus just start chipping out some damage. As we go into Carousel here, we want to be really mindful that we get at least 1 tier, because Vel'koz without Spear of Shojin is a night and day difference. In the event we're unable to get a sword or a tier, I may potentially take the magic resistance because I can still make a Chalice of Power that will end up benefiting my Vel'koz. But it's looking like we're able to get the tier here. So since we have a very high possibility that we could get a 3-star Varus, I'm going to look for a faster level here. So here we pick up the spare Nautilus because a 2-star Nautilus in the early game will be very powerful. We also just grab this Aatrox as we want to make sure we can have enough redeemed units as the game goes on. So thankfully, from just throwing the early items on Vayne, we're very heavily favored in the lobby, securing a very fast win streak. So here we'll buy the Vayne just because it means that if we get a 2-star Vayne, she can hold us for a little bit longer in the lobby, but we won't grab the Thresh as we're not going to look to pass 2 nights. So here, even though I'd love to keep the Nautilus to get a 2-star Nautilus potentially, I want to make sure to sell him so we can get over that 40 gold breakpoint, as that will really start getting our economy going with our win streak here. Yeah, getting a lot of gold there is, for the state that we're in the game, not necessarily a bad thing, but not the best, as we were hoping for something like a sword or an ability power. Because with the sword, we're really looking to just make the Spectral Spear of Shojin, so that Vel'koz can get his casts off as early and consistently as possible. Welcome everybody who stopped into the stream. Just to give you a little bit of insight as to what I was saying at the start, I've noticed that the biggest difference from Sett 4.5 to now, thanks to the loss of the Chosen mechanic, is it's much more possible to force a composition. Now, with that, what I'm looking to do this game is just go a redeemed Vel'koz, since I had the early spell crit start as well as an early 2-star Varus. Here we find the ability power, which is great if we do end up going towards a Gunblade. But what we're going to look to do here, since we already have the 2-star Varus, and we're just looking to start get our redeem units, is we're going to make a bit more of an aggressive push towards level 7. Sorry, I didn't hear what you heard, Korvax. I'm not sure what the creepiness would be. So here I'm going to look to do a little bit of rolling, just to see if I can find a few more levels on my units. Now, I am going to pick up the Karma here, because there is an option, even if it's a little bit unlikely, that I could end up going something like Invokers and potentially going towards Dawnbringers. I do think that with the items we have, we'll still be much better to go something like a Vel'koz, but we'll see. Yeah, thanks to Abomination here, I'm fairly confident this will be a close loss. But Syndra was able to get the last auto attack off before she died, and we come away with the win. Going into Carousel, we really need a sword. Unfortunately, there is a sword on a Taric. Fortunately for us, there's also a sword on an Aatrox, so there is a chance that we'll be able to pick one up here. Yeah, since we don't get that, what I'll actually do is I'll grab the Crit Glove, as that could potentially make Trickster's Gloves for us. I like your enthusiasm, Korvax. I think I may end up staying with the Vel'koz plan then, and not worry too much about a Karma in particular. I do think that our composition is still a bit too weak with what we have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap Ashe and Taric into the composition and take out Vayne here. So that gives us 2 Verdants, as well as maintaining our Knights and our Rangers. And as you can see, that actually proved to be a very large buff because Taric's heal was able to keep our team alive. Albeit barely, it did end up doing enough for us. We don't want to fall too far behind on our leveling, however. It's a little bit unfortunate that we don't have another Leona for a 2-star. It would make me feel much more confident as we leveled. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to make the Trickster's Gloves on Aatrox, knowing that we will eventually be selling him to maintain 6 redeemed. And since we're not going to be going Kayle in our composition, I don't think it's really worth it to try to save these gloves for something potentially stronger. Yeah, so unfortunately this person is definitely going for Kayle, as you can tell by the Guardian Angel and the Runa and the Ginsus. So it's going to be a difficult composition for us to crack, but if we're able to hit Vel'koz at a decent pace, then we will be able to overpower the Kayle because he should be able to shoot straight through the composition. So we're going to go to level 7 on stage 4-1, which is about on pace with where we would want to be here. But unfortunately, it's looking like we're going to have a bit of struggle in finding ourselves a Leona. And until we find ourselves Vel'koz, we're going to be feeling pretty weak. So thankfully we found a magic resistance, which means if we don't find a sword, we can end up making a Chalice of Malice on our Syndra. That will let us buff up our Vel'koz, potentially Rel or Varus, whoever ends up next to them. But I am going to look to roll here because there was a chance that I could find Vel'koz. Now that I've done that, I look to sell the Ash, and I will make the Chalice of Malice here. Yeah, as you can tell, the composition without Vel'koz having a Spear of Shojin is much worse because it takes him so long to be able to cast. And good evening, AlphaGen. Welcome to the stream. Thanks for joining us. So here we find ourselves in a bit of an interesting position, and what I'm going to look to do is I'm actually going to take the Shadow Rod, because I could potentially make a death cap on the Vel'koz, which could make up for some of his lack of items, in the event that we're not able to find a sword. I think the last thing we're missing in the composition would be to swap Aatrox out for Rel, and then we'd look to go level 8 and put in another Knight, starting with our Nautilus. Or sorry, we go to level 8 and we look to put in another Mystic, since Nautilus would then replace Taric to give us the Ironclad. I'm not exactly sure what we would want to do for our what we would want to do for our level 8 Mystic, but Kindred would be perfect as she's a ranger as well to complement our Varus. So unfortunately we're not hitting what we would need to in terms of our composition, but we have to just use our life here to get to level 8, because once we hit level 8, then we'll look to roll down all of our gold to find our Vel'koz to get at least a 2-star. And our priority on Carousel here is definitely a sword, followed by a tier. Because if we get the sword, we could at least make a gunblade on Vel'koz in the worst case. Unfortunately, the sword will be the furthest from us when it comes to our turn, and the tier was on on a Viego. But thankfully, our opponents don't end up going for it, so we do get the sword. So, I just want to reach out to the chat here for a minute. How's the weekend going for everybody? Anything special happen? I'm glad it was a decent weekend. Yeah, it's unfortunate that we'll be ending the weekend here soon, but thankfully, at least we're able to relax for a few more hours. Hopefully have a good night to end off the weekend. Someone has bought a light fixture, started yard work, moved a friend. Wow, Gorvac, sounds like you had a very, very busy weekend, but productive. So I'm actually going to look to level to 8 here, because I'm finding there are other people in the lobby who are looking for Vel'koz as well, and finding a 2-star is quite a large power up for us. Now, I'm not sure if we'll end up going for a 3-star Vel'koz at our current life total, but it would definitely secure us a win here. But as long as Vel'koz is able to cast in a second, we should be in a pretty good spot. Yeah, unfortunately, it was just too much crowd control, so Vel'koz got disabled there at the end, and we take another loss. But not as bad as it could have been, for sure. So the dream of going for a 3-star Varus has very quickly slipped from our fingers, knowing that I saw earlier in the game that someone else also had a 2-star Varus, as well as the fact that we were looking to be contested with Vel'koz and Spellweavers in general. So I didn't want to stay at level 7 for too long since we weren't finding any more Vel'koz beyond the first. So like I said, in the event that we weren't able to find ourselves a sword, we can still make the Caustic Death Cap, as well as the Gunblade on Vel'koz, in the hopes that he's able to put out a large amount of damage. I've also noticed that many people tonight are going on the opposite corner, so in order to fix that, I want to make sure that we move our units over. Unfortunately, we don't actually need the Viego, which is a little unfortunate for us, but it's okay. I'm also going to set Syndra up as a potential alternate carry here, and leave the magic resist off for now. Yeah, so as you saw there with the single laser, Vel'koz was almost able to pull out a win on his own. Well, we're very happy to see the 2-star Leona here, as it is something for us. But we're still missing a Rel. What I'm going to do here is I'm actually just going to buy the Kayle, as it'll be a second Verdant unit for us. And I'm going to position my units in such a way that I can make use of the verdant buff. Realistically speaking, we don't actually want to keep Kayle because we're not looking to itemize her. But in the immediate, we'll just throw the Trickster's gloves on her for now in the hopes that she'd get some useful items. Where unfortunately, she did not. As you can see with the lobby tonight, it's very contentious for Vel'koz, as he's one of the few ability power carries that has persisted in the set. Now, they've nerfed Coven and nerfed Mordekaiser. We're really thankful to find a Garen here, as he will reduce the damage of all of our opponent's units. It's just really unfortunate that we're at such a low life total, so we won't be able to comfortably look for a win condition in the 3-star Vel'koz, just based on our health here. However, we'll have to see when our Vel'koz gets a cast off, as it could make a very large difference if he doesn't get crowd controlled by the Abomination. Yep, unfortunately, our Vel'koz doesn't end up casting at all, and we go out in a definitive 8th place. And no, I think realistically speaking, it was never to lock for Vel'koz, it was actually to sell the Vel'koz on my bench and start looking for Rel, as she makes a huge difference to buy us time in the composition. That's alright. I mean, the night will go, there'll be wins, there'll be losses. It's just unfortunate that, as you can see, the major compositions are Spellweavers with Abomination, Kayle with a Knight frontline, Skirmishers with Jax, Katarina Assassins, and Vel'koz. Just before we queue into the next match, I'm feeling a little bit more Aquachunk tonight, so I'm going to switch over to him. I know. All the viewers are huge fans of Chonk in the chat. Now, there is a build that I've been really hoping to go, but unfortunately, it's fairly dependent on landing ourselves an early Draconic. I've really wanted to try, if we can, the Draconic Sett build, as it looks really fun and actually decently powerful, but we'll have to see what happens. It's quite possible we don't end up hitting it. The biggest thing we would need for it is a couple of swords. Thankfully, we find one here, and making an Infinity Edge right off the bat is one of the best things you can do in this patch, because it's useful on so many different units. Now here what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to put in both the Callistas and sell this Lysandra, as her spell deals physical damage. So it will naturally crit off Infinity Edge. So right now all I'm looking to do in the early game is just make my items and see what I can do with the units that I'm given. Because the early game lately, there aren't, other than Hellions, there aren't any real reroll compositions. So finding the 2-star Gragas early is great for us. We love to see an early 2-star, especially on such a strong frontline unit like Gragas. What I'm looking to do here is I could sell more units, but I would much rather just keep my board strong for this first round. Try to see if we can come out with a win. I am going to put the armor on Aatrox though, in the hopes that he's able to survive for a fair bit longer. Because in the early game, that armor makes a surprising amount of difference. What we would really need to make Gragas that early game frontline tank that we would all really hope for would be finding a another Dawnbringer unit. Aatrox is not a main carry. Even now that he's been buffed, he's just a great unit to hold damage items for later.
Let's give him a show.
So we do hit the Sett, which is great. It's something that we were really hoping for. But I think the correct play here is to level and keep the composition something like this. Yeah, the buff that he got definitely helps him, but what it really does is if you get Aatrox 3, sure you could try making him a carry, but you have to realize that as the game goes later, he will fall off. And all for trying it one game, if I end up getting like 6 Aatroxes by Krugs at stage 2-7, but otherwise, I wouldn't really recommend trying it. So we're really happy to be seeing so many brawlers here. As I was saying, I do want to make Sett our primary carry. The only thing I would really need for him, beyond the Draconic buff to keep trying to get more Setts easily, is a Bloodthirster. So going into Carousel, we're actually hoping for a loss here. And with that, we're hoping that we can potentially find ourselves a sword, because finding a magic resist will be a lot easier later, as a lot of people will be trying to scrounge for damage items potentially. We also could look to get the Callista and Aatrox out of the composition. If we find that we want to have a bit more power for some more win streak. Unfortunately, we're definitely secured the 3rd pick on the carousel, so it's very unlikely we'll get a sword. But we can also try to look for magic resist here, as a Bloodthirster or Risk Thirster would be fine. So I fully expect the sword to be gone here, potentially also the ability power. Unfortunately, we just lose the magic resist here, so what we're actually going to go for is something like the bow, because we could potentially turn that into a way for Sett to shred much more armor and deal a fair bit more damage with his spell. So here we keep the Udyr on our bench. Just as we find a third Draconic, we want to play 2 Brawler, 3 Draconic, next level. In the immediate, however, I am going to put in Soraka. As I want to make sure that we can get the Dawnbringer buff in for Gragas, as it'll make him so much more durable for the fights ahead. Yeah, the fact that we're 2 Gragases off from 3-star Gragas is pretty hilarious. I mean, in the event we do get 3-star Gragas, he's such a big tank with 60% damage reduction that we would want to itemize him as a defensive option for our composition, while we itemize Sett as our physical damage dealer. In the immediate, however, we are okay being below our 20 gold, even though ideally we would like to be a little bit further along with our economy. We've just found so many Gragases that it'd be foolish to pass them up if we're going to be going for a 4 Brawler composition. We're really just hurting for another Draconic unit here, because the sooner we can get Draconic started, the better it'll end up being for us. I don't think it's ever correct to roll here, but we are a little bit desperate, because the longer we wait, the less chance we're able to find a 3-star Sett, and we would need a 3-star Sett for the composition to end up coming together. But we'll see what happens here. We could get lucky with a 3-star unit coming off the Krugs. Yeah, so really unfortunate. I did a few rolls to see if I could hit the Gragas. At least we hit the Sett 2-star, which will be a good bonus of power or increase of power for us. But I was really trying to see if I could hit the 3-star Gragas, because that would power us up quite a fair bit. I was also hoping that I could find a 3rd Draconic, as that would make us feel much safer about the path that we're on. But finding the 2-star Sett really helps our damage. As you can see, he's since he has a physical damage spell, it's guaranteed to crit. It's just unfortunate that we don't have another sword, because that would mean that he would heal off of each time that he casts. And there's the sword we're hoping for. Without much effort, we also managed to hit a 3-star Gragas, which is both hilarious and mildly disconcerting. But, we'll see what we end up doing here. Personally, one of my favorite 3rd items for Sett, since he scales off of attack damage for his spell, is something like a Guardian Angel. In the event that he does get chunked down, we want to make sure that he comes back, he's able to cast, and we're looking fine. We do see a 2% rel in the shop, and what I'm going to do, since it doesn't put us below any sort of a breakpoint here, is I'm just going to buy it. and put it in over our one star one cost in Udyr. I could slap the armor on the Sett, but the other option of what I can do potentially is I could use this crit glove on Sett for something. Potentially Shadow Hand of Justice, so Hand of Vengeance, which could give him a bit more damage since it does give 40 attack damage and 40 ability power, as well as a 40% heal. So it does help him a fair bit. Alright, that's a second rel. At this point, things are getting a little bit absurd. I'm not sure if we just take it, but I think what we do is we definitely buy this Nautilus and put it in for 2 Ironclad in the immediate. I don't feel confident buying this extra rel though, as rel 2-star is just a 12 gold sink where all we're looking for is to put in our Draconic as soon as possible. Yeah, unfortunately Katarina is one of the compositions that we're going to have a lot of trouble against as the game goes on, because you'll see, depending on if she had a tier there, she would have been able to constantly jump around Sett and make it so he wouldn't be able to get his cast off. Going into Carousel here, we're looking for a sword, as that'll be the best thing we could find. If we can't find a sword, which there isn't one on the Carousel currently, we're probably looking for something like a belt here to give Gragas a Sunfire. I just take the Lulu over the Sett because I want to sell it anyway. It feels a little bit bad selling the Sett, and Lulu's worth an extra gold. Yeah, we're really aiming for Sett to be One Punch Man here for our composition. So that's a big pickup for us. We find the Nunu, which actually gives us 4 Brawler, which is stronger than our Ironclads, as it gives us back some gold. We want 4... Oh, sorry. So Eclipse Cape burns enemy health. The ally is also burned, but Gragas has so much health that he'll be fine. And the fact that we're keeping Dawnbringer in will really let us put a lot of work. Also, the 4 Brawler gives pretty much all of our units a Warmogs, so we feel pretty happy, even if it's burning our Gragas. Because it increases the tick rate, which means that it's going to be happening much more often. It doesn't burn your own units, it burns in a bigger radius and at a faster rate. So it makes sure that they take more damage over time. So now we're able to get above 50 gold, and we're just looking to hit level 6, as we can drop back down to 2 Brawler if it means we can get our Draconic in, and that's really what we need here. And I'm fine leaving Sett with these 2 items for now because I'm still feeling totally fine throwing a Hand of Vengeance on him. The one thing that I would love to see, potentially, is another belt, because I could make a Zizarot portal on Gragas and make sure they target him, as he's meant to be our extremely durable frontline tank. And yes, I know Zizarot is, when the unit dies, but eventually Gragas will tick himself out with the burn here. And when he does die, we'll have an extra tank that will be long-lasting in the Zizarot portal spawn. Yeah, unfortunate the Sett died right at the end. That opponent got pretty much a perfect loss, but we're still happy with the win as it continues our 4-round win streak. There we go. So even though we dropped below where we would want with the 50 gold breakpoint, we're still really happy because we found a Draconic unit. Now, we don't put Draconic in now because it's only at the end of player combat that we'll start generating eggs, but we're happy to have one. We also get back above 50 gold anyway, so it's no real harm to us. Now what I'm gonna do is gonna look kind of silly. I'm gonna aggressively level to 7 here. The reason why I'm doing this is the 4 brawler power spike is extremely high for us and extremely potent. Couple that with the fact that we want to make sure that we can get our Draconic in immediately to start spawning eggs, and we're going to be at level 7 for a long time looking for a 3-star Sett. This is perfect for us. This Soraka, realistically, can be swapped out. We're not particularly relying on her as a Dawnbringer, nor are we relying on our Udyr to be our 3rd Draconic. Eventually we'd want that to be Heimerdinger, but in the immediate, we're totally fine with what we have. Yeah, so as you can see in this fight, even though Gragas is burning himself consistently, he has 3,500 health. He's not gonna die anytime quickly. It really is one of the best things we can do here. So I'm really curious as to what would happen if I put a Deathblade on Sett. I'm not sure if it's the best item for him, but I do think it'd be really fun. So I think I'm gonna take that. The other option would be the Shadow Belt for a Shadow Warmogs on someone like Nunu or Gragas, but I mean, we already have a belt here to make our Zizirot, and I want to have a little bit of fun tonight. Yep, so for here, we're just looking to get above 50 gold. Bide our time, pick up any Draconic that we see, pick up any Sett that we see, and then we'll be doing some slow rolling at level 7, looking for those Setts. This comp will eventually look for level 9. We're not overly concerned at the moment, considering we're okay to just take some time, get some eggs. What do I think of putting tier on Soraka? Well, I definitely think it's not bad. Don't get me wrong, I think it's not bad. My only thing about... I mean, I can jam the tier on the Soraka right now, that's fine. My only thing is, what am I going to do with it later? Because as we go into Carousel here, what I could get is a belt. And with that belt, I could just make a Redemption on Gragas. Now, Redemption will not... I'm not sure if it will heal the user, but it heals allies around and it reduces their incoming area of effect damage by, I think, 30%. And that's gonna be pretty good if anybody's got something like a Kayle, something like a Jax. Yeah, but as you can see, Sett's just throwing out haymakers here. And our Gragas is just so durable while also being a tank that they are forced to attack in the front line. So we hit our 50 gold. We're back to winning. As we go into Carousel, the ideal unit to grab would actually be Darius. And the reasoning for that is because he'll lower all the enemy's armor. He also has a belt on him, which we would love to turn into a sacrificial redemption. I mean, is still not bad by comparison. Not quite as good for us as redemption, I'd say. But with Darius out of the way, we just want to grab the Soraka. We'll make a redemption. But again, putting the tier on our current Soraka, not something we're as happy about, because we would much rather have this on Gragas, because it is a aura to only allies in 1 hex. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to sell the Soraka, throw redemption on Gragas, because it's that important. Now, whatever item components we end up getting on 4-7, if any, we'll probably end up just using with the Shadow Gloves. We're pretty happy with anything except for a spatula at this point. Yeah, but as you can see, I'll pull up the damage graph for a second. The Gragas burn did so much for us, and couple that with the fact that Sett's just constantly trying to stay alive, we're able to overpower our competition here. Thankfully our Draconic Egg's looking to hatch next round, just by the way it's shaking and glowing so violently, and we're really hopeful we get a Sett, maybe a Nikos, heck, even a Heimerdinger, but I don't think that egg size is big enough for a Heimerdinger. Perfect. So we find a Sett. We don't actually need the Udyr. We'd be taking him out the second we find either Zyra or Heimerdinger. But we are going to do a little bit of rolling, as it gives us a better chance of finding Sett. Now, I am so torn on if Garen is actually good here, but considering he's still a Dawnbringer, I do think that he'll be better than the Nidalee. I also just noticed that there's a Zyra in the shop, who I said would be our better unit than Udyr. So I do want to buy her. I know it'll put us under 50 gold. So what I'll do is I'll sell the Ashe. We're hopeful that from this egg we get a Sett 3, because from there we'll just look to aggressively level to 8. This will be a level 9 composition. Nice. Love to see it. So we are actually looking to make this a level 9 composition, but we're not going to be running 5 Draconic. We're going to be running 3 Draconic, 4 Brawlers, and we're going to be splashing in a bunch of 5-cost units. Because Kindred will give us a 2nd Ranger, Volibear will be our 4th Brawler. But since we're going to be looking to go to level 9, we probably won't be at level 8 for very long. We just want to make sure we get that Sett. And off we go. Now that we have Sett 3, we don't care about the spare Setts coming out of our eggs. And once we level to 8, we want to put in... Ideally, we want to find the Revenants in Ivern and Volibear. And since Heimerdinger is going to be a renewer, Ivern comes in really handy, working double duty for his bonuses. The 3-star Sett, I just want to watch the damage here because I'm really interested to see what he'll do. Yeah, so that 3-star Sett did about 8,000 damage. And along with Gragas constantly keeping us with damage reduction from area of effect, that karma wasn't really a problem for us. Yeah. So we take the free Zyra, and we just start slow leveling towards level 8. And from there, we will look to go to level 9, because all we're missing in our composition are 5 costs and Ivern. So since we're not looking to keep Zyra in the composition, as Heimerdinger will be the replacement for her, we're not going to buy this Zyra and instead just get ourselves ready for level 8. Yeah, so Sett's trying his best here, but unfortunately that Kayle is fully ascended, so it's only a matter of time before we lose the round. Going into Carousel, we'd love to grab this Darius, as he has exactly what we need in potentially another Zizerot, as well as being a Darius. But the other option could be Heimerdinger if it doesn't get taken. Sweet. So we find ourselves a Heimerdinger for free, making us really happy, even though he has an item on him, which is not something that we would necessarily want. We still take it, and we just look to level to 8 here.
I believe in the future of Dragonkind.
So, we hit a 2-star Heimerdinger. Pretty free, to be honest. I don't believe that there's much else we could do here. We don't actually want the Zyra, so we'll be looking to sell her. But just having the 2-star Heimerdinger really makes our composition a lot better. Because once he gets his spell off, the damage and burn should be very, very powerful for our team. Yeah, so unfortunately, once again, Kayle is just too strong with her constant shielding in the late game. We will be looking to go level 9 as fast as possible, which is the reason why I kept Zyra in. But unfortunately, we don't actually want Zyra. So if there was any other unit that we would put in, we would sell her in an instant. Like, even for now, I would just put Ryze in over her. Unless Sett's able to hit Viego very soon, we lose this. Yeah, unfortunately the Viego is just able to get a bunch of spell casts off with his rapid fire cannon, and we weren't able to do much about it. So we're gonna look at level 6-1 to level to 9. Unfortunately we haven't found any Volibears, any Iverns, Kindred, Darius, and thankfully we hit an Ivern. I'm not actually sure where the best position for Heimerdinger would be. I know the turret is something that can be used to hit a large area, so it can go pretty much anywhere on the backline, but I'm not actually sure the best position for it. I mean, so for now we'll just run the double Ash here, as it does give us the chance to get a 3-star Ashe, which would be really good for our crowd control. We don't actually look to buy the Heimerdinger because 2-star is good enough for us. We're still missing more Volibears, more Iverns, a Kindred in general. But as you can see by the way that we won that fight fairly handedly, that level up was very worth it and very important for us to stay alive. Realistically speaking, we're just looking for any other ranger at this point. Ideally a Kindred. I know I passed into Vel'koz a while back, but I was much more aggressively searching for things like the Volibear and the Darius to help our composition. So, yeah. I'm also unsure whether Volibear or Gragas are better in the positions, but I do like the Gragas being over in this corner as it stops any real shenanigans. Yeah, super unfortunate that our Sett keeps getting crowd controlled here, and there's a Viego pounding away at our backline. As Kayle's about to ascend again, which means that we will lose this fight, and it's looking like we're going to go out in 5th place. Yeah. So unfortunately, this composition just falls to Kayle, and as we saw, there was a Draven that we were able to beat. There were Viegos that were constantly taking control of our Heimerdingers, and there were 2 Kayle players who were both able to hit a 2-star Kayle. Overall, nothing to complain about with the composition. Still very pleased with the performance, still very happy with the Sett 3, and it was pretty hilarious that we found a 3-star Gragas so early. With all that being said, I do want to check with the chat. Do you guys feel like you need a break, or are we good to go into the next game? Next game it is. I mean, Korvax, I will do whatever I can to try to pull out a win, but I can't promise anything, unfortunately. Like, as I said, it's just the way the meta is right now. Kayle is extremely strong, and the compositions including her are the top 2, if not 3, in the game right now. I mean, the main thing that can compete with a Kayle is something like a 6 assassin composition. Even then, I don't have the highest confidence in the 6 assassin just because I know it will be contested, and as you've seen, if a comp's contested, it's very unlikely for it to work unless it's just a single unit between them. Actually, if I could have a choice of what to force for the next game on how I could potentially come up with a first place if there's a lot of Kayles out there, Teemo is a pretty hard counter to Kayle in that he will lower the attack speed on Kayle, so I'm going to try to grab the tier here because it's possible that I could go a Hellion composition, and for that you may want something like a Static Shiv or a Static Stiletto, which is the Shadow version. Fantastic. Without any delay here, I look to buy these Hellions, as the composition I want to run will use Teemo and will end up being a Hellion composition. However, I'm going to play it slightly differently than you'll see a lot of Hellion compositions play. What I'm actually going to look to do is just to get 2 stars on the Hellions. Knowing that I want to preserve health to sell Ziggs later for a Teemo. So I'm going to play a bit more of, if I could describe the composition, it would be like a zoo Hellion composition where, yes, you'll have the 5 Hellions that will pop out of the portal and have a good amount of attack speed, but I want to also have Volibear and Ivern in the front line, and if I can, Heimerdinger in the back line. The only reason why I buy Leona here is because I can put her in for 2 Knight. I'm not sure if leveling up would be the best thing, but considering I'm not looking to 3-star my Hellions, I actually am going to level up here and put in Leona. Unfortunately, this person just has a stronger opener than us with having the Varus and the Syndra for their 3 redeemed. So I really don't see any way of us winning this. We should be able to kill Leona, but I think that's about as far as we're going to get here. Yep, unfortunately, we almost killed the Nautilus, but not quite. As the game goes on, we want to make sure that we can get Guardian Angel for at least Teemo, if not Kennen. So I'm going to grab the sword here in hopes that I can potentially grab a something like a ability power on the carousel for a Jeweled Gauntlet. So it's really interesting because the perfect items, considered perfect items for Teemo, are Guardian Angel, Jeweled Gauntlet, and a Static Shiv. Actually, sorry, Static Stiletto, the Shadow version. The main reason for that is just because you want him to be able to get as much magic damage out as possible, and you want to make sure when you do throw out the mushrooms that they can critically strike and deal a good amount of damage in a large area. Yeah, so once again, we'll be doing a little bit of a loss streak here, which, not the best feeling in the world, but could guarantee us either a Shadow Bow on the carousel or a ability power. As you can see, those early game buffs really helping Aatrox to keep him alive as a premier frontline Dream Tank. Here we look to take the ability power, because even though Shadow Jeweled Gauntlet isn't ideal compared to a regular Jeweled Gauntlet, it's still going to be very powerful and something that we can use throughout the early and mid game. Fortunately, we also find ourselves at 20 gold here, which means that we'll start working on our economy pretty quickly. In the unlikely event that we find a Lulu in our shop, we will definitely run 5 Hellions level 5, as that will be probably the strongest board we can get. Yeah, I'm really thankful they fixed the bug that they used to have. There used to be a bug where you couldn't get a spell crit if the unit was dead. So if they had a Jeweled Gauntlet, they were in a Guardian Angel animation, they wouldn't have a spell crit if the spell was in the air. So they fixed that bug specifically, and it's a really nice feeling to have that. Now, I don't know if this is the correct play, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Brandon for 2 Spellweavers in the hopes that that will try to potentially power up our board a little bit more, because we don't really want to loss streak through the rounds. Unfortunately, this person has a Bloodthirster Sett as well as the Abominations, so we definitely don't win this. But we take the best loss possible, literally taking 2 damage for the round. Now, I'm not actually sure if our 5 units will be strong enough to win the round, unfortunately, considering they are still only 1 star. But we'll have to see. Here we keep the Morgana, as she can be a Mystic for later, as an interim unit. Now, with only 1-star units, we're feeling particularly weak here. So we need to try to see if we can hit something. Thankfully, we're able to hit 5 Hellions, which will really power up our composition, as well as a 2-star Leona to go in at level 6, which means that we can then sell the brand to get to 30 gold. The other option is we could potentially just sell this Leona, because Morgana could be a level 6 unit with the 2nd Mystic. But we'll have to see. But once again, you can really see our lack of 2 stars is very much hurting our composition. Thankfully, even though we are losing, we've been consistently losing, so we have a loss streak, which is really helping our economy here. But it's still not exactly what we'd be hoping for. It's also really unfortunate that we missed the we missed on the bow there. I am going to look to buy Kennen because if I were to itemize any of the other Yordles, it would be Kennen. We shouldn't win this, but it's possible. Yeah, as we tick into overtime, we get the extra ability power, which means that Kennen's able to secure the win there. So we break our loss streak, which isn't great for us, but since we're back to 50 gold, we really don't mind as much as we could have. The fact that we're finding 0 Hellions is a real problem, because we would want at least a 2-star Kled and a 2-star Poppy before we would move on to higher levels. And then we'll want to start leveling pretty aggressively to make sure we can maintain health. No matter how strange it sounds, we actually wish we would have lost that last round because we would have been able to maintain an 8 loss streak, letting us get much more income. Since we are bottom of the board though, we can look to grab the bow here. And get ourselves a static shiv. Not as good as stiletto, but definitely better than nothing to use that tier. We could have also looked to grab the Shadow Spatula, but we're not looking to go 7 Hellions this game. We haven't been rolling aggressively, we've been looking to level more. It really just isn't a good play. So our go button here is actually just one more Kled. But for now, we're just gonna have to keep waiting. But as you can tell, the static shiv, between the static shiv and getting the 2-star Poppy, really did just increase our power level quite drastically. Yeah, as far as stage 3 goes, the wins losses that we've had is the worst thing we could have had happen. Because regardless, we're still looking pretty bottom of the board here. The only reason why we put the spare cannon in here is because we want to not drop below 30 gold just to buy something in the shop. And from here, we're just going to look to get up to 50 gold. If we get one off the Poppy, I could use the Nikos on her. But otherwise, we're just going to keep looking to get our levels up here as fast as we can. Ideally, I'd love to find a health to get Morellonomicon on Kennen, as that will really help cut down on the opponent's healing. And will help our composition overall as the game progresses, because he's looking to be our 3-star frontline AP unit. So unfortunately we don't find health here, which is kind of unfortunate, but we do find a magic resist, and even if it makes our cannon tankier in a slight way, the Dragon's Claw is still looking to be a very good item for him. So going into Carousel, we will actually be prioritizing health, which is not a common thing that you'll hear throughout the stream. Are you going to have enough health to go for Teemo? So, interesting you should mention that. From here, we're just going to be looking to level, and with the way we've been going so far, I should be able to afford at least Teemo 1. I would love to get Teemo 2. There's no way that I'd ever look to go Teemo 3, even if I was a Mr. 100 right now. But yeah, I should be able to afford the Teemo. Yeah, but as you can see, the improvement that we would have by getting Morellonomicon on Kennen would be pretty massive, because he really does go through the entire enemy team. And the fact that he has the chance to apply it another time means that we would love to even like have the shadow one if possible, if we have to, but we would much rather just have the regular one. Normally here I would level, since it's only 20 to level, but we don't really have anything to put in. What I can do is I can buy this Nautilus and put it in for 2 Knight, and then I can sell this spare Hecarim, as we won't be keeping Cavalier or Hector in particular in. What I'll actually do is I'll sell those 2 Ziggs, knowing that I'll be selling Ziggs later, and the potential of finding a 2-star unit is just really good for us here. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think we win this just because of Nocturne. Like, the healing that Nocturne has now that the bug was fixed is quite large, and the fact that he has Bloodthirster makes it nearly insurmountable without having anti-healing in a Morellos or a Sunfire. So going into Carousel, we either grab a Teemo if it's there, or we grab a health. So there is a Teemo. I do think that the health is most important, because without it we're finding that we're really not able to beat many compositions here. Because the extra burn damage that we need is just so important for our composition. What I'll also be doing is I'll be taking the Shadow Jeweled Gauntlet off of Ziggs and off of eventually Teemo, because we want to preserve Teemo to deal as much damage as possible. So I've left the spare bow and Crick Glove to make a regular Jeweled Gauntlet. I just don't know what unit I could put it on in the immediate. Considering it would want to be on a unit that we don't want to keep, I could theoretically just throw it onto Hecarim. No matter how hilarious it sounds, we do want to make sure we start using our items here. Also, apologies for the ad in the audio. I don't know why that happened. It shouldn't have. I'll have to look into it later. Now, even though I don't know if it's actually better or not, I do believe that 3 Cavalier will be stronger, as it's a 60% damage reduction compared to a flat 15 damage reduction. So I think that'll be stronger for our frontline units here. We're going to look to go level 8 on 5-1 and then roll the rest of our remaining gold to try to find a Teemo. As well as Volibear and Ivern, hopefully. And what I'll do, because I'm confident we'll beat Raptors, is I'm actually going to put the second cannon over the Sejuani, because what we can do is if we don't get any gold here, we sell it. If we do get gold, then we're still fine. So unfortunately we didn't hit really anything there, which is going to put us in a really difficult position on the round. We're probably going to end up petering out here in, once again, 8th place. The reason why I didn't end up using the Nikos on the cannon, first and foremost, was because when I was rolling down there was a chance I could have hit another cannon. But unfortunately, I also just didn't have the fastest reaction time, and I wasn't able to use it fast enough before the round started. Unfortunately, with the loss here that I'm fairly certain we're going to get, I don't know if we'll be able to afford a Teemo if we see one. Yep, so we'll have exactly 1 health left afterwards, but we're on 1 loss anyway, so it doesn't make a difference to us. So we buy the Teemo. we make sure that we swap it in here. Yeah, we can't buy another one, unfortunately. But we do get lucky with finding 2 Volibears. Considering that we're never going to be able to buy a second Teemo, we just want to do this and hope that it's strong enough. Unfortunately, it looks like we're still going to go out in 8th here, but we gave it our best. Once again, unable to really hit anything. So I have to say, through playing all these games tonight, I really feel like I'm sorry for letting you guys down on the stream. I don't feel like I have the strongest grasp on the meta. Like, I understand that Kayle is a very powerful composition, but if you're not the first person to find Kayle, it's highly unlikely that you'll be able to make it throughout the game. I mean, I love TFT. I really do. It's really fun, and there's a lot of theory and strategy behind it. Unfortunately, it just feels like in the early stages of the set, you have to play what is the most powerful solely because it beats everything else until balance will come through. As they've said, really patch 11.12 is when they're aiming for the meta to be more stable, more open to a bunch of different compositions, and they'll be adding chase traits, which means that using a spatula isn't just going to give you a slight flex, it can actually give you a full composition to go for. Now, I'm not sure how powerful it will be as a composition, but I do feel like I want to force something involving a Draven. So the number one item that Draven loves is Bloodthirster or Risk Thirster, both are powerful. Beyond that, he just wants damage, something like Infinity Edge, Rage Blade. Compositions that I might go, 3 Forgotten and Splash units, just to get extra Legionnaire, to get some frontline defense, to get Mystics. 9 Forgotten, if I'm finding that I'm ahead in the game and I could potentially look to aggressively level. Or some version of Dragonslayers plus Legionaires, where Mordekaiser is a frontline damage dealer and Draven is a backline damage dealer. Any of those could be really good. I'm just not sure what I'll be able to come up with this game. We'll have to see. I do have to say, as a general mindset and frame of mind going into these games, it really has changed for me in that I do feel now that I need to try to go for a couple of compositions even before the game starts, by compared to something like the Chosen mechanic. And to that extent, it's really making me feel like this is once again similar to Sett 3.5, But unfortunately, in that set, my comfort level was going mech assassins. And in this set, the equivalent would be Abomination and Friends, but as we've shown the other night, even with 3-star Abominations, they don't quite feel powerful enough. I'm not sure if it's just the pace that I was going, maybe Kallista's not meant to be the carry in that composition and it's much more focused on brand, but that was just my initial opinions. So right now with my items, I'm feeling fairly confident that I can go something with an attack damage carry. Either a Draven or a Kayle. Because with the items I have, I could potentially make Guardian Angel and Ginsu's, which is perfect for Kayle. The other option is I could just make Bloodthirster if I'm able to get magic resistance. And then all I'm missing is ability power for the Rage Blade that I would want anyway. So that means that the first thing I'm looking for is ability power. Since we're unable to find that, we do want to have some form of a damage or a frontline assurance for Mordekaiser. So we want the Shadow Glove, because I can either make a Caustic Quicksilver or the Shadow Infinity Edge, where Bloodthirster is the most important item on Draven. In order to make economy here, I'm going to end up selling these Kallistas, and I'm just going to put the sword on Lysandra. With the increase of the durability of Cavaliers, we should still be able to win this, but it's a lot closer than it used to be. So for now, we're still just playing strongest board, which means that we'll buy the Nocturne and throw him in. Our first priority on the carousel would end up being a sword, as we can find a magic resistance item later. Beyond that, we could want ability power so that we could have our Ginsu's on whatever we end up going. So I would say ability power and sword are our two highest priority. Unfortunately, we're so low on the carousel for pick order that we may end up just taking whatever we can get. So I'd love to hear from the chat. What are your opinions on the new expansion so far? I know Alpha Jim was saying that he's not really enjoying it, but I'd love to hear from the others. So here I'm really torn between magic resist and ability power, but what I might look to do is grab the ability power here first, if it doesn't get taken by my opponent, which it does. So, magic resistance it is. So for now we're just playing our strongest board, which just happens to be Coven Renewers. We don't want to stay with them permanently, but it's fine for now. And with the win, we buy this Yasuo, as it will be a Legionnaire for us later. Oh, the Hellion game did not go well. But thank you for asking. In this game, we're just playing Coven Renewer as an early game composition, but we will be looking to transition to either a general Dragonslayer Legionnaire game or Forgottens. So for now, we're just playing strongest board. So I do think that we will lose this round, but I do think it'll be close. Wow. Alright, so thanks to Renewers, we come away with a very, very close win. We also make sure to sell this Warwick now that we've gotten a new one, because we do not want to leave that bow on him. So we may end up going Mordekaiser as a main carry here. Just looking at our items, we actually have near perfect Mord items. We have Caustic Quicksilver, we have a Gunblade, and one more health, and we actually have the Warmogs for him, which means we could go Dragonslayers, we could go Forgotten 3, which is Draven, Mordekaiser, and Friends, or we could even go the 6 Dragonslayer, 4 Legionnaire with the Draven like I was hoping. Nocturne's fine where he is here just because he could have been further over, but he'll work alongside LeBlanc to be able to break up their backline. So it's not the end of the world with him being where he was. Yeah, so we're going to be handed our first loss here just because Lissandra can't break through the frontline wall. That is Gragas. What we're going to do is we're going to buy the Riven, as that will be another Legionnaire for us. Yeah. So we want to start getting extra swords for anything we end up running. But I'm going to be mindful of the fact that I may end up playing a Dragonslayer composition. So I want to buy the Pantheon. I know I'm sitting on enough gold on my bench to put me up to 50, but in the event that we find a Trundle, we could potentially just start changing our composition over completely. Knowing I'm going to sell the Lissandra, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put the Mordekaiser items on her. It'll free up a large spot on my item bench, and it'll put more power in play. The fact that we still have 1 stars on pretty much the entirety of our units in play is what's really causing us to lose these rounds, as if we would have hit the 2-star Vladimir, we would have been in a much better position. Especially if we would have hit the other Coven units 2-star as well. The fact that we're finding nothing is just making us start to free fall in terms of our health. So here we've got some Dragonslayers, we've got some Legionaires. And what I'll do is I'll look to just put the Mordekaiser items on Morgana for now, knowing that she, if she does stay in the composition, I'll just remake her. Yeah, this person's looking to probably go Nightbringers with a carry Yasuo. It's going to be really interesting to see how the game plays out for that. Considering I'm not going to go Nightbringers, because Forgotten, as I haven't seen them, I'm going to sell those units. If we have any choice of what we want here, we're going to take the Rel, as it's going to give us our Warmogs for Mordekaiser, which is the best thing we can find for him, as his shield that he gets is based off of a percent of his max health, and since Warmogs gives 1,000 max health, it's just ideal. So here we need to do a little bit of rolling just because we are too weak. Fortunately, we do find a Trundle too, which will help us a little bit, but probably not enough in the moment. What I'll also do is I'll just put the bow on Jax, because we have 3 Skirmisher, and he'll be gaining AD every second. Our opponent here has 6 Skirmisher, which is definitely stronger than our mishmash of a composition, but they have no items out, so it may happen that our Morgana will be able to barely hold on and close out a win here. Perfect. So we end up getting a perfect loss here, barely losing to the Pantheon, and we take the least amount of damage while continuing our loss streak for our gold. Unfortunately, I feel like we need to drop below 50 gold here just because we have so many pairs on bench that if we don't, we're going to fall too far behind in this game. And we don't manage to hit anything, even though we have 4 of our units that could be upgraded. From here, I don't feel like I can... Even though I don't feel like I can afford to roll more, I think I may have to if I don't find at least 1 more pair by stage 4-1. It's looking like this will be a win though, which breaks our loss streak, but that's not the end of the world, even though we would have loved to have had it until 4-1 where we would aim to power spike. what we're going to do here is we're going to make sure we stay over 50 gold for wolves, and hope that we can find either Diana or Mordekaiser to make it a little bit easier for when we head towards level 8. I'm not actually sure if Viego is stronger here, but the fact that we found a 1% 5 cost really makes me feel like we would want to put him in. As he would be replacing our Jax for our 3rd skirmisher if we were to go for an unlikely level 9. I don't believe we win this because the timer will tick down and Zyra will get her spell off, but I'm surprised that Trundle comes out ahead, barely. So here we're just looking for Draven items, ideally a magic resistance. Since we don't find that, we want to take the ability power so that we can have a chance to make a Rage Blade. This Frozen Heart can be made on someone like Diana. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go like this and hope that we can get magic resistance ideally, if not a crit glove off the carousel. I buy these for now because I don't see myself getting above the 20 gold breakpoint here. But I do know that Jax will need to come out, Morgana will need to come out, and we hope to find Mordekaiser and Draven. We may need to, now that we have a few more 2-stars and we find that we're stabilizing on damage, we may need to just save our money and look to get to level 8, realistically speaking by 5-1, but as soon as possible while picking up spare units along the way. If we can find a 3-star of Yasuo or Riven, it could make the difference for us winning the game. Since it's not killing our economy to hold on to them, we just leave it. Also, it's kind of funny, if we get ability power items, 3-star Trundle can actually just carry, because he deals 45% of their, he just steals 45% of their stats. If you get a death cap on him, he deals over 100% with any other ability power item, or with the Dragonslayer buff active, since it's going to give him more ability power, and it's going to push him over that 100% steal range, and he just slurps units. The Trundle should come in real handy here, considering they have a Hecarim that's 3-star, as well as a Poppy. But again, we'll see. Yeah, if Trundle doesn't get dropped here, the ability to just lower the maximum health down from, I think it was something like 4,000 to 2,000 is just absurd. So here on the carousel, we still want magic resistance as our ideal item. If that gets taken, we're happy with the crit glove, but we would really prefer the magic resist. In the event we're not able to get either, I'm not actually sure what we'd go for, but I'm gonna have to figure it out. Probably another sword is the option here, as that means we could have potentially a death blade as an item on Draven. Knowing that we're going to get items on 4-7, I don't really want to make a Death Blade yet, so I'm just going to wait. There's no real harm in it, and if we do end up losing this round, which I'm hopeful that we won't, I'll just sell the Riven, knowing that Yasuo is a more powerful 3-star unit, since he'll be dealing even more consistent true damage, and scaling true damage on his auto attacks. Where Riven is more meant for frontline damage and to be itemized as a carry. But thankfully we come out with a win there. Viego, extremely powerful unit to find. Very lucky that we found him at a 1% odds. Yeah, and this is what I was saying about just buying up the Yasuos that we saw, because it's very possible that we can just hit a 3-star Yasuo fairly easily. Unfortunate that we wouldn't have great items for him. That just means that we would take the Ginsus that would go on Draven and put it on Yasuo, as the faster he attacks, the more mana he gets, the more true damage he'll be able to accrue, and then the faster he'll be able to just delete opposing teams. So we're really lucky here that we get the Viego in the corner, as even if Kayle is not stolen right away, Viego's in a great spot to potentially steal their carry in the Yasuo. I say potentially because he's barely able to be taken down by Kayle, which means that we do lose this round. So I sell the Riven to break our 40 gold. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take out the Morgana with our items, because in the event that we do not get any gold from these Raptors, I need to sell this Morgana to get to 50 gold, and we know that we'd be selling her later anyway. So I don't really want to keep the items in if I have to, or unless I have to. Amazing. So we come out with a large sum of gold, which will really help us on our roll down as we go to level 8 here. So unfortunately, we don't find the Mordekaiser, which is kind of the linchpin of our composition. So I'm not really sure the best course of action here. I do think that for now, what we can do is we can buy the Aphelios and throw the physical damage items onto him. Because that will give us a 4th Nightbringer unit in the immediate. Not amazing, but it's something. So we didn't hit Draven or Mordekaiser, which was really, really unfortunate for us, as we want to take out Aphelios and Morgana here. We also rolled all of our gold down. I mean, realistically speaking, I sell the Trundle and I keep looking. But we're at the position where if we don't find our units, we're just dead in the water. Especially against a 6 skirmisher and near perfect item Jax. I really don't see us coming out with a win on this round unless Viego gets a clutch steal. Which he crowd controls Jax long enough for us to do. Yeah, Korvax, you have the right idea. We have to put the items back on Morgana, but we know that we're going to drop the 2 Nightbringer and sell Morgana and Aphelios for our 2 carries, neither of which we've been lucky enough to find, unfortunately. Viego ends up staying in our composition here, so I would love to buy him in the event that we win this round, which at this point is our hope. So we got lucky with our Viego positioning, but we got unlucky in the fact that his Pantheon was targeted first, not the Jax. Because of that, I think we just lose the round here. Yep, it's a decided loss, which means we have to let this Viego slip by, as we still don't have Draven or Mordekaiser. Unfortunately, neither of those two are on the carousel either, which makes our itemization and options much worse. What I am going to look to do, however, is I'm going to look to grab this Kayle, as it gives us the most gold for us to work with, as well as the Archangels can go on someone like Pantheon, or even Viego to decent effect. So unfortunately we don't find the Mordekaiser, but we do find the Draven, which I believe will be stronger than a Vel'koz, just in terms of the items that we have. So I'll do the itemization something like this. I'm going to leave Viego in this corner, as I've noticed a lot of, I noticed a lot of compositions are stacking on this side, but I was debating moving him over, just to see, because if people are scouting, they may notice I have my Viego there. Thankfully, we do steal the Morgana, which could help us here. And the fact that Draven has yet to be targeted is really giving us a chance in this fight. Yep, unfortunately, their Kayle comes online just too quickly, and even against the Shadow, we have nothing that we can do about it. Yep, so for us, unfortunately, Mordekaiser didn't exist this game. Since we're at our very last moments, I need to sell those Yasuos in the hopes that I find the Mord, which we barely do. We're just gonna have to kind of sit back and pray here, hope that we can make it out of the round. What I am gonna do is I'm gonna move Viego over, because I've noticed that a lot of the most dangerous units are on this side of the board for most compositions, as well as better steal targets. Yeah, I mean, you can see the night and day difference once we find Mordekaiser. We get the 4 Dragonslayer buff in, 4 Legionaires. It really just turns everything on for our composition. The reason why I don't throw the sword on Draven is because on stage 5-7 with the dragon, we could potentially find an item that's better for him. So you don't want to force Draven into that item. If there was, for example, a Bloodthirster here, would be amazing for our Draven. Infinity Edge, also great for our Draven. The fact that there's a Titan's Resolve doesn't help us too much. We're actually going to put that on Viego, because we have the 2 Assassin trait, Viego and his spell can critically strike. So we want to make sure that our Viego is as strong of a backup carry as we can have. So we find the Viego here. What I'm going to end up doing is selling this Yasuo that we have, just so we have a 1-star Yasuo, because realistically speaking, a 2-star Viego is so much stronger than a 2-star Yasuo, considering we've itemized him. Now, looking at the state of the boards, we definitely want our Viego to be somewhere like here, just to jump towards the middle of the opposing team, because most people have actually grouped their compositions in the middle of the board. As you can see, the lack of healing on Draven is making him live with a very, very low amount of health, which he will definitely die in the next couple seconds. What it will also mean is that it's only a matter of time before we lose this round, as our Viego will not be able to out-sustain the Hecarim. With that, I believe we're knocked out. Yep, barely. And we end in 4th place, which, you know what? Top 4 is sometimes the best you can hope for, considering we never found a Mordekaiser or Draven until stage 5-3. With that, we're going to end the night. Plat 4, 85 LP. Thankfully, we did end up with a top 4 on the night. Unfortunately, it just wasn't enough for us to find Draven or Mordekaiser in time. Thank you all for watching once again. I hope you had a good night. If there's anything to take away from the stream, it's that there are a few distinct comps that are still super powerful in the meta. Kayle being one of them, and by Kayle I mean literally a 1-star Kayle can win you around if you have enough defenses in front of her. As well, 6 skirmishers, extremely powerful if you can itemize Jax. Even this composition, you saw that we spiked very hard when we found even a single Mordekaiser and Draven. Just goes to show that if you do find those early carries, you can make the composition work. With that, thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.